Welcome to my voiceover world.
Good day, sir.
Hello.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Uh thanks for
Great, you
willing
said.
to do this, Jake.
Of course, man. Absolutely.
I was hoping for you to say that.
Of
But,
course, yeah. Hey,
to start off right there, I've been getting to know a lot about you because of the show Demon Slayer. And because of that show, I'm beginning to learn about you and your voice acting right there. And that you, sir, are just very good at playing a lot, being part of a lot of projects that are
yeah.
yet to come.
Okay.
And here's the best part. I made a lot of videos for you for almost 3 years. And that the characters and voice actors videos that I've done, I included you in there for your
I
work to be
know.
recognized.
I know, and I appreciate that. That's awesome.
Told this to the same thing to Rick and Jill, and they all come to love my work right there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's good, man.
Hmm.
You've taken the initiative. You're doing it for yourself. It's great.
And not just for myself, but for all the people I look up to, just so that everyone can just have the chance to feel enlightened.
That's awesome.
Indeed. Well, to
Indeed.
start off there,
You've got a great voice too.
it's so funny. Everybody says the same thing. Even Bill Millsap say the same thing too. And
You do.
that's
You have a
why
great voice.
Yes, and that's why he has desire of wanting to work with me. So, yeah,
He should.
he
He
will
just announced a
eventually.
huge project that he just did. It's great.
Indeed, he will be eventually. But to start off right there, I got a lot of questions to ask to you. But
I'll go
yeah,
for it. Yeah.
you've been part of so many incredible projects. So how does it feel about being in so many projects and bringing all these different characters you brought into the entire projects yet to
You
come?
know, it's great. I love the work and getting to play a lot of different characters makes it a lot more fun because then you can play with your imagination and the child within all of us who likes to play like that.
That's the most interesting to hear from you, which leads me to the most important question. How did, what really inspired you to pursue voice acting? And what was the best decision you have made so far that has excelled into your career?
Wow. I think I've always been I've always played with my voice since I was a little kid. I was just telling me somebody this story the other day. When I was like, I don't know, 5 or 6, we had this reel-to-reel tape recorder, and I learned how to use it. And I used to do stories about frogs in the behind the couch. I'd go behind the couch and I'd get a blanket and I'd get in this little space and I'd make up stories about these frogs. And I wish I had those tapes because we moved so many times. I guess they kind of disappeared. But I remember doing that. And then when I was like, 7 or 8, I knew I wanted to be an actor or have that be part of my life, right? And then so I did school plays and did theater and outside of school. And then I went overseas and I lived overseas for a while. And I did theater overseas and I had some really great experiences doing that. And then when I came back to the United States, um, I was really kind of more focused on that. And I realized that that's really something that I wanted to pursue. So when I was in high school, I did theater. And then I went to college and studied theater. And I was doing other things too. I did English and history and political science, but then I always ended up doing theater again. And then I moved out to New York to go to school in the neighborhood playhouse. which is an acting conservatory kind of like school. And that was Sandy Meisner ran that school. And I've always loved it. And the voiceover thing uh, was when I had a family and needed work, and it was easier to do. I mean, for me at that time, the commitment was more regular. It wasn't. I'd done some union theater, and if I was doing that all the time, I would never see my family. And fortunately, I'm a sound designer as well, right? A sound editor. I work on films doing sound editing and TV, and I direct voices for Loop Group and that kind of thing. Excuse me. So when I was doing that, I could work out of my house. And so I could raise my kids and be there for them at the same time I was working. And it all worked out. And the voiceover was great because I could go and audition while the kids were at school. And then I could go to jobs when the kids were at school. And if I needed to, I could juggle with my wife a little bit about, making that happen. So that's really kind of how it all ended up being such a primary focus because
I
it just made
see.
more sense. Yeah.
So that's how you got into voice acting because of all
Yes.
that experience right there. I'm about to say this other question, but for every actor who ever faces rejection, have you ever faced rejection? And
Oh
how
my.
do you handle those setbacks and overcome every obstacle through that?
Have I ever faced rejection? I laugh because I think 90% of what I face is rejection. Um, yeah, I guess when I was first doing voice, it sucks. Rejection sucks. But yeah, it's just a part of this business. And you got to learn not to take any of it personally because if you did, it would destroy you. I mean, I must do 1,000 a year, and I do not get 1,000 jobs. So that goes to tell you at all, right? I mean, you'd be lucky to get 2% of those, right? And those are good jobs, right? When you're working, it's great. Uh,
Interesting.
I think we always, I mean, for me anyway, I always face the personal challenge of wondering why, right? Or trying to figure out the best way to do something to get the job, or, what happened? You can't help but ask those questions. But if you harp on that and you focus too much on that, it becomes really difficult to uh, continue because it's just you beat yourself up so much and so often that how could you keep going? But I love it so much. I love what I do, right? I love the sound. I love doing voiceover. I love directing actors. I mean, I love all of this. I don't know what I'd do if I wasn't doing something creative like this.
That's very
I'm really,
interesting to
I mean,
hear you.
I feel very fortunate that I've been able to do this for as long as I have. I mean, it's incredible. I used to work in bars. I was a waiter and a bartender and I painted houses and built
What?
houses. Yeah, I did all sorts of stuff like that to survive, right? You have to do things to survive in the world. So,
Wow. I
yeah.
did not notice that you did not only voice acting, but you also work in other things, you know?
Yeah.
Like a
Yeah.
single person once that I interviewed with once told me that he does outdoor construction, and not just that, but he's also involved in his rock band that he's part of, and he pretty much does a lot of good stuff to just survive, like you.
That's right. That's right. That's what you have to do. So it's not always, some people get a lucky break early and then they can work for the rest of their lives doing that, which is great. But not all of us have that luck or that opportunity.
Well, I'm glad you told me that, and I should thank you for that kind of knowledge. Now, without further ado, I have so many questions about your characters, but this might interest you. But Do you remember the first ever character that you played as, like your first ever audition? And what was the experience like being part of this first audition?
The first voiceover audition I did on a professional level was I was in LA. I had just come here from New York, and some friends of mine were working on a movie called Hellraiser 2. Do you know the Hellraiser movies?
Oh, yes, the one with Doug Bradley?
The Pinhead?
Yes, Doug
Yeah,
Bradley, the guy
yeah.
who recently did an Invincible as the voice of technicians, who
Oh,
literally just tortured Sterling K. Brown, and it was satisfying to watch. But anyway, what was it like doing that again?
So there was a character in there called Camerahead, and he had a camera in his eye, right? Like that Pinhead had jammed into his eye, and he was one of the Pinhead's minions. And well, the director wanted to revoice the character. So I went in and auditioned, and I got the part. So I revoiced the whole character. And the experience was great. It was a lot of fun. I became friends with all the guys that were working on the project. And actually, the sound designer that was working on that project, I ended up working with him and then worked with him for 15, 20 years doing films, doing sound, just from that one show, working on Hellraiser 2.
I see.
And then I actually worked on Hellraiser 3 and Hellraiser 4 and Children of the Corn 2, 3, and 4. And, all these different horror films. It was a great way to learn about sound design. So,
Wow.
yeah.
So that was your first ever audition. That
Yeah.
camera head in Hellraiser. I just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure so that just in case if I ever do a voice showcase for you, just like I've done it for many others for almost 4 years, like the one I just told you about, Richard McCongle, I just
Yeah.
wanted to make it in chronological orders through the voice range and age throughout the years right there. And that's why
Yeah.
I needed that knowledge to make it chronological order. So I should thank you for that.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thanks.
Always. Now then, how does it feel about stepping into the role of Sandak in Voltron Legendary Defender?
That was awesome. I had a great time with all of the people on that show. All of the directors were great. The producers were awesome. All the actors were great. It was a blast. And I loved that character. That was a really fun to play.
Hmm. That's very interesting to hear from you, because all I know is that I got to know all about Voltron. Plus, I got to meet Bill Millsap from Voltron, and boy, he told me the experience of working with Andrea Romano was a very huge blast before she literally got retired around 2017, if I'm not mistaken, and
I
got
think you're
replaced
right.
with a new director. So,
Yes.
yeah, that's something that I've started to understand right there.
Who
But
was the new
yeah,
director that came in and took over for her? It was
let's. Her name is Serena. Serena
Serena.
Irwin.
Yes, I know Serena. I actually know her husband really well too. He's a car enthusiast as I am.
Wow.
He
Never
likes,
even know that until you told me. But
yeah.
yeah. Well,
Yeah, she's great. She was a great director too. Or is, I should say. She's
she
still.
is
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
through many projects that she has done currently. So yeah.
Yeah.
Now then,
Yeah.
you playing the character by the name of Rodrigo Achille Faderdis in Fire Emblem must have been so exciting, right? So let me ask you this. What
Okay.
was your favorite aspect about bringing that character to the entire game?
The what was great, the director was awesome, and he helped basically bring the whole family life into my understanding, which really, I had my son was involved and a guy who I referred to as, someone who was close to me, the prince, and I just really enjoyed the elegance of that production. You know what I mean? Because all of those characters were it was all about honor and respect, and at least for my character, Rodrigo. Uh, that was a really good production. I really liked that a lot.
I
And then they did
see.
the second one, which
So
was also
that's what so that's what you like about playing that character. And from
Mhm.
you mentioning about the director, if you're talking about a great director, are you talking about both Kristen Lamont and Patrick Seitz?
Yeah, I worked with both of them and they were great.
I
Yeah, I mean,
see.
and it was they were so clued into the story. That was what was so great about working with them. They were very dialed into the story and the the impact each of the characters had on each other. And I guess you have to with something that big, right? You really have to know what's going on, but they really did. They were really on top of it.
They are indeed. And
Yeah,
I'm honestly proud that they were able to bring you into the entire Fire Emblem. And that's
I'm
why I love
proud
about
too.
And that's what I love about them. They just bring a lot of good aspects to every single people right there. And
Yeah,
you interacting with Lucy and Dodge was the most surprising thing ever right there. Just makes it feel like, boy, your character really is trying to make amends to his own son in order to just make it look like a good father bond, you know?
that's
Like
right.
how I've seen in every anime so far that often deals with that. So yeah, glad you just told me that. Now then, in Romancing Saga 2, Revenge of the Seven, what stood out about you voicing the character Leon?
Well, again, you know that the regal element of him too, but he was also internally conflicted. But uh, I like that whole production actually. The intensity of the characters was actually really cool. And again, the directors pushed you into a place where you know your conflict, your internal conflict was so high. One of the things I love about anime is the extremity of character, right? You know how extreme everybody can be in those shows. I love that because I tend to be sort of extreme myself in many ways when I'm performing. You know, I like to go to the edge of everything.
Awesome to hear from you saying that right there.
Yeah,
Honestly, I got to know about the entire game right there, and that Ezra Weiss, the guy who literally brought you in, best known for Miraculous Ladybug and everything, did a good
yeah.
job bringing you in there. Especially since you, my friend, are like the main character of the entire game. It is so surprising that, boy, this is your first time being a main character. You should do that more often. And that's
I'd
something I'm
love to.
beginning to notice right there. So yeah, I'm glad Azra did the right thing bringing you as the main character.
I am too. Thank you, Ezra.
I hope he's watching this there, but
I hope so too.
indeed he will. Now then, your character, Bike in Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origins must be a legendary character, right? So what made that role so special to you?
Yeah, I worked with Keith Aram, dude. He was the director on that, and that was a lot of fun because the character was this otherworldly kind of dangerous pirate. You know, he was but he was also a little bit lost in his universe, right? The universe that he found himself in. So again, a conflicted character, but he was fun to play because um he was just this crazy pirate that was, you know, it just how it was directed and how it was portrayed. I owe it a lot to that to the director because again, the director's giving you context in order to do what you're doing is a huge part of it, right? So that because they have to give you the other side of the story so that when you go in to do a show, you don't get to read the whole script. You don't get to read all of what's going on in the show. Um, so it really is you are counting a great deal on the director being able to get you into that space. So I gotta hand it to Keith for doing that too.
Interesting. So that's what you love about being that character. Because I'm gonna be real straight with you, but I actually met Keith and Valerie Aram of through my interview right there, and
Oh,
that Keith, on the other hand, he did a good job bringing you into the entire project,
yeah,
especially when you get to interact with Alejandro Sab, Alejandra Rosino, even Fred Tatasciore as well, just bringing a lot of good aspect to making the game more interesting in a way. Because
yeah,
hey,
man,
it's the
sure.
it's the thing about being part of a game. It's just by opening your heart to who you are.
That's right. And those guys are great actors too. They'd help any elevate anybody in their character. Those guys are great.
They are indeed. Yeah. Your character, Kyuhei Honozawa in Like a Dragon Geddon, the man who erased his name, must have a unique presence, right? So let me
Yes.
ask you this. So what's the most coolest thing about bringing that character into life?
You know what's great about that character is how chill he was. I mean, he seems I mean, there's a certain intensity in his being underplayed, and I really enjoyed having that journey take doing that character. That's because he was underplayed. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like it was a quiet intensity. And I think that it made the character more powerful, in the broader scope of things.
That's very interesting to hear from you because
Mm.
I got to know about the Yakuza games right there, and that Keith Aram again did an
Yeah,
amazing job bringing you into the cast right there, especially when you get to interact with Kaiji and Greg throughout the entire game, which makes it 10 times awesome. Plus,
yeah.
right now, there's a Yakuza 0 director's cut by June right there.
Oh, no kidding.
Yep, you check it out on YouTube and you'd be surprised. Plus, Kaiji Tang and Greg announced that they're both voicing the same character right there. For Greg is his singing voice, that for Kaiji is his speaking right there.
Oh,
It's
wow.
so
Very
funny
cool.
how it just ends up in certain ways right there.
Yeah,
So,
it is. That's crazy.
it is crazy. But as Juzo Mogar in Detective Conan, what was your favorite thing about bringing that character right there into the entire projects?
I love how wacky that whole thing is. That whole project is completely wacky and so over the top and wonderful. Um, and my that guy was great. He's just like always so huge. Everything about him was always like giant. And but he loved kids, and he was very empathetic and passionate about what he was doing, which was great.
Well, that's very interesting to hear.
And
Because
Ezra
all I
Weiss, he directed me in the last one of those, I think.
who
Again,
who is Jalen K. Cassell?
Ezra.
Oh, Ezra Rice, right? Because all I know is that Jalen K. Cassell did brought you once into a Detective Conan versus Lupin,
Okay,
where you and the detective crew were fighting against Lupin's crew right there.
that's right.
It's
We
like,
sure were.
yep, is where you team up with Doug Erholtz to take down Tony Oliver.
Yes, Tony Oliver. Right on. That's right. And Tony directed one of those too, I think. I'm not sure. So,
He did direct you indeed in there.
yeah.
Well, your character, Dinraku Shafatu in Odd Taxi, must have been so cool, right? So, what was your most favorite thing about bringing him into the project?
What Odd Taxi was? I think I played a bunch of characters in that, didn't I?
Yeah, but all I know is that when I looked up in behind the voice actor's website, it turns
Ah,
out you play. It always shows one character in there, and that's Dunraku right there. So, what do you like about voicing him?
that show was really interesting. I played a lot of characters in that, and each of the characters were very unique in terms they were all animals, right? Do you
They
remember?
are.
They are. They're all animals. And I played a lion and a toucan and what was the other one? He was a doctor.
And the other one was named, he was a bamboo.
A bamboo. That's right.
And that's Danraku, the bamboo himself, named
Yes.
Danraku.
Yeah, that was a blast. I loved doing that show because I got to play so many characters. It, and they were all these wacky animal characters, and they were all being interviewed about one of the characters. What happened in that show? I'm trying to remember now. Um, like I said, you come into these shows and without complete context, you're kind of only working within the moment. So I kind of get lost in those characters sometimes because there are so many of them. I don't remember what that was about as a whole.
Yeah, that is something I have learned from someone right there who
Yeah,
once got himself into a show there. But hey, you being part of it was just super
it
cool
was a
right there.
blast. No, it was super cool.
Especially, and I
And it was,
give props to the guy who I met with, Bill Millsap,
I was
for
just gonna
bringing
say
you
that.
right there.
That's right. He directed that. I remember doing that with him.
Yes, indeed.
Bill's awesome.
He is very super awesome. And speaking of another project that you worked with him in, what was it like playing the character Taisho in Zom 100? And what do you love voicing him?
Just again, the extremity, going in and be able to cut loose. I appreciate, Bill's direction and kind of guiding me into that craziness, and that was fun because of that. It was huge. And I played a few characters in that too. But yeah, it was a lot of fun just because he allowed me to go to the extreme.
That's very interesting to hear from you, because all I know is that I've got to know about Zom 100, and I even got to meet with some people there.
I
Plus,
bet you did.
you wanna know the best part?
Wow.
I made a video for you about Zom 100 of the characters and voice actors of it, and I included you in there in order for your voice acting to be recognized.
Oh my God, I'd love to
And
see that. Can you send it
and
to me?
oh, I will. And you know what the most funny thing is?
What's that?
As I learned from a certain someone 1 year ago, is that the funny thing is that by the time that Bill Millsap directed Suzume at the same year that Zom 100 came, and he brought you into the as Shuge, one of the characters there, which I made a video about, and that by the time Suzume is done, oh, is where he brought you back into his direction as in Zom 100. And that's the most funny thing I've ever heard about.
Well,
Jennifer Sunbell told me that. So, yeah.
I look forward to it. Yeah.
Yes. Without
Now let me
further
wait. Can I
ado,
can I ask you a quick question about your name? So, do you prefer to be called Sebas? What how do you prefer to be referred to? How do you prefer to be called?
my friends actually call me Sebas or Sibs or anything beyond that point. But honestly, Sibs is actually a very cool right there.
I think Sibs is awesome. I'm going to call you Sibs from now on because I want to say Sebas or whatever, but I think Sibs is actually pretty cool for
Thank
me.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jake.
All right, cool.
Loving it.
All right.
Without further ado, there are, there are last questions I like to ask due to the time there, but your character, Ignis for Dustiness from Konosuba must have been so funny and hilarious to play as, right? So
It
what's the
was.
most funny thing about bringing him into the project?
What was great about that is he was basically dead the whole time. I mean, he was lying in a bed and he was basically dead the whole time we were doing the character. And then he'd go into these lunatic kind of this lunatic energy would come out of him. Uh, and that was absolutely hysterical. How like we were talking about earlier. It's like what I love about anime is how people can be normal and then just go into these extreme, huge characters. Just they can be completely explosive. And for that, I love anime. I think that's what makes me enjoy it so much is how extreme it is and how surprising so much of it can be. So for that character, yeah, he was like lying in bed and he was very tired and difficult. And then he'd explode.
Oh my God. Now that's super funny. Honestly, it's like you. You being part of that show is just super awesome.
It is
Especially
awesome.
when Alex Von David and Ezra Weiss directed you in each season's right there. And the third one, oh, I was dying in laughter when Meta just literally zapped you right there. Yo! So, yeah, I'm just very glad that everything just turns out awesome and you made
I
it.
I am too. I am too for sure.
I was hoping for you to say that right there. So yeah. Without further ado, I have one more question because of the time there, but
All right.
the movie Suzume must have been so cool to be part of, right? So what
Uh-huh.
is it like being in the movie Suzume as Shige?
That was great. That was Bill Millsap too, wasn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Before some 100.
Yeah. That was a really good project. Those characters were that was a more normal production in terms of the characters, but they were all very heartfelt, which I really enjoyed too, because it was very earnest and honest characters. That
Yes.
that's what made that great. Yeah.
Interesting. That's something I'm beginning to like. Because honestly, I watched the entire Suzume and it's very awesome right there.
Yeah.
Plus, the best part is that Josh Keaton himself was part of it, since he's more of an anime voice actor rather than animation. Because that's what I love about him, just interacting with you and everybody else there in the
Yeah, Josh
project.
Keaton's great.
Because the more he gets into anime, the more popularity he's gonna get. And
I
I
worked with him
guarantee
on
you that.
Batman.
But
Yeah,
hey, you being part of it was just super awesome. And
I
that Bill
appreciate it.
Millsap did a good job directing you, especially with a scene with Roger Craig Smith and Jennifer Sun Bell together. That
Yeah.
makes it 10 times awesome right there.
Yeah,
So
you
yeah,
know what? Bill's really great and he's brought me in for a lot of stuff and I appreciate that.
indeed.
Yeah.
Well, Jake, it's such an honor to finally meet you at last, and I'm very grateful to meeting you.
And I'm grateful to meet you too, Sibs.
Of
It's uh,
course.
it's been awesome. And anytime we can come back and do this again and talk
Okay,
more specifically about other characters if you want.
of course. There's one more thing before you go, and I wanted to ask you in a quick way.
What's
When
that?
people look back on your work, how do you want to be remembered as a voice actor?
Wow. Um, that's a really good question. I just want people to have gone on the journey, and I hope that I made the journey better for them in the show that they watched me in. You know, I hope that I complimented the story so that the journey was that much better.
Well, I'm glad to hear that from you. And that's one of the reasons why I'm going to work with you in the industry when the time comes.
I'd love that. That would be great.
Indeed, it will, and I'll make it a reality eventually.
All right, that'd be beautiful.
Yes, it will be. Well, Jake, it's nice
Zips,
meeting you, and I
nice
just
meeting you.
hope, and I hope you do something very awesome.
I hope so too. I look forward to that.
Yes, you will, my friend. Yes, you will.
Thanks, Sibs.
Thank you, Jake. Take care.
Talk soon.
All right. See you around, my friend.
See ya.
Want to keep up with my journey? Follow me on social media for more updates, behind the scenes moments, and all the fun along the way.